Good evening
Did you
and
know
welcome.
that fantasy author Sandy
Whoops.
Lender offers? Did you?
Well,
Did
Life seems to cry.
a little bit of a hiccup there. Sorry about that, folks. But this is Steven Zimmer here live on the Star Chamber Show. And yes, you can tell that we are indeed live. And yes, this is episode number 508. And a good evening to you all from Central Kentucky. And yes, I did did forget to put our audio cues on not looping there at the beginning, which has happened a couple times in the last 100 episodes. But so sorry for that brief jarring moment there. But joining me in the co-hosting chair tonight is the lovely, vivacious, loquacious, and audacious Holly Phillippe. And I think Holly is in the house already.
Toodaloo. Hello. Here I am, ready to go.
There she is. There she is. Well, it's going to be a very, very good show tonight, folks. And we have a guest that we're really looking forward to introducing to you. Somebody that's coming onto the show for the very first time. And of course, that'll be coming up in just a few minutes. But we have our first segment of the night, of course, where he covers all things Imaginarium, because the Star Chamber Show is affiliated with the Imaginarium Convention. And of course, you can follow Star Chamber Show on Instagram, Blue Sky, on Facebook, and all kinds of good spots. And of course, we do also post on Imaginarium as well. So, but yes, Ollie, we've got a few updates on Imaginarium to pass along, and then, of course, if you've got something to share as well, we will definitely be getting to that. I will say, yeah, we did post today. We are definitely open to bring aboard some new sponsors onto the Imaginarium show podcast. And again, those spots are only $25 and include up to 40-second spots. Up to 40-second spots that are run on the episodes that are sponsored. And so if you're interested in that, just reach out to us at the email address entertheimaginarium@gmail.com. Again, that is entertheimaginarium@gmail.com, and we will get you set up. And of course, we have our great core of long-standing sponsors, and we of course continue to have them as well. But we do have a few spots that we can offer. So if you'd like to come aboard, please do. And so in the last about week, we have added one spotlighted guest, 2 panelists, and a workshop and a couple of panels. So we do have some cool stuff to share with you. As far as the new panelists that have come aboard, we have prop maker and editor, filmmaker, actor, artist, and 3D printing artist Matthew Smith. Yes, that was quite a lot there. Again, editor, filmmaker, actor, artist, 3D
And he's
printing
now
artist,
a gardener.
maker. Yes, and he's also a very savvy.
His whole yard
gardener.
is now a garden, and he's got a little pool for fishies and everything.
But he's amazing when it comes to productions, folks, and yeah, very talented. I mean, he has an arsenal of 3D printers. He can create amazing props. I mean, he's a talented filmmaker and editor, and just all around really talented guy. Actually, I think he needs to be known more for his art too. The guy has an amazing artistic ability. I personally think he should get into book covers, but I've been telling him that for a long time. But yeah, he's going to be a great returning panelist for us. And also returning is author T.R. Benjamin. And T.R. Benjamin is very interesting because he's got this big collection of mechanical keyboards, and he's got a big expertise in the history of keyboards. So he usually in the past he's put on some presentations about that, and it's a really kind of fascinating stuff. And then we also added one spotlighted guest, and that is award-winning filmmaker, screenwriter, and actor Silvio Wolf Bush. And
Woo,
Silvio,
the wolf.
Yeah, he's been in movies opposite. He's acted in some major Hollywood productions. He's appeared in scenes with Adam Driver, Kiefer Sutherland, Kelly McGillis, James Spader, Willem Dafoe, Charlize Theron, and many others. I mean, he's got an extensive military background, and he's a tactical expert as well, which is going to come up here in just a second. for be relevant to what we're going to share with you on programming. And he's an equestrian, really very knowledgeable equestrian too. So yeah, definitely excited to have Silvio coming back to Imaginarium 2026.
And he will be
And
doing a workshop.
yes, and that is what I'm getting. Let's see, that is what I'm just pulling up here. That workshop is firearms and film production. And yes, this one is tweaked and modified a little bit from some he's done in the past, and this is going to be an
Yep.
amazing workshop. Carol Preflatish had commented on this one on Blue Sky about how amazing Silvio's workshops are, and I think this is going to be the best one he's done yet. But it's a
Mhm.
class in onset firearm handling, from achieving gritty realism to implementing rigorous safety protocols. And so you walk away with professional techniques to protect your cast and crew, most important, while capturing the perfect shot. So yeah, that's gonna be a really, really, really good one. Then we also have two panels ahead. One is Echoes and Ink, an open reading and poetry session, and this is focusing on the poetry side of things. It's going to be an evening panel where we are going to have open poetry readings, and yes, it will be moderated. And yeah, Holly and I have somebody in mind that we're hoping that comes in to be the moderator because they'd be fantastic for this. But yes, that will be taking place as well. And then the future of creative integrity, and this is moderated by Chad Elliott. And this is going to move beyond the how-to of AI and dive into the what now for the creative industry, as far as like the automation, acceleration, and how do we protect human expression and the environment that sustains it. So it's a discussion on practical steps creators can take to advocate for regulation, long-term impact of generative tools, critical thinking, and the often overlooked environmental costs of AI. And so, yes, this is going to be a very interesting panel. Of course, Chad Elliott is a fantastic moderator, so that one will be a really good one, won't it, Holly?
Yes, it will. It's going to be very interesting. Um, Moon, I I have to talk to you. I'm not sure if this is the one you were drafted on. I believe it was. Yes, Chad. Yeah, it is. It is the one you're drafted on. So you will be on this panel also. The wonderful DL Hearn, Dwan, the
Yes.
Moon. He will be on that panel too. Um, I did a couple little different ones, Chad and Remillion, and they've pulled Moon in on this deal, but it'll be open to a few others that I could fit on there. But it'll be, a discussion on, like the environmental concerns and the concerns going ahead as far as creativity and stuff. And then, I have another AI panel scheduled that looks at actually using it in an ethical way, how you can use it as a tool for research and, things like that. So it's a different perspective.
Yes, and while we're on the subject of Moon, yes, Holly and I got to listen in while we were working to his new. He's had his wrestling podcast on YouTube, but he now has a co-host, Joker, and I'm telling you, this was a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. He did a fantastic job. So if you do like pro wrestling, this is the place to go. Because I've made several comments to Holly about just how much these guys know. I mean, they know their stuff. I mean, you can just tell that the expertise is just oozing out at all times. I mean, as far as history, different promotions, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, Moon's wrestling podcast on YouTube is just amazing. But I know Holly, you loved it too. So
Oh, I
I'll let you
did.
speak for
Man, I
yourself.
tell you, I would have had a lot more editing done yesterday. However, I was listening to this podcast and I'm so glad I did. It was so much fun. I kept piping in. Yes, Moon and the Joker, great host. They know their stuff across the board, not just WWE guys, but across the board. True wrestling
Yeah.
fans. And yeah, we watch all that too. We can't keep up with everything, but boy, the grandkids, they sure do. And Miss Addison, yeah, she could talk all day with Moon and the Joker.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, they
she
yeah,
studies it, and so it's a lot of fun. And I look forward to the panels that he will be a part of at Imaginarium. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then Sabata and him, talk about this mystery wrestling. That's going to be
Yeah.
hysterical.
Great chemistry between Moon and his new co-host Joker. Their interplay is smooth, comfortable, fantastic. I mean, they really balance each other great in the styles they each have, and yeah, it's a winner, folks, for sure. And so check that out. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's going to be I believe a weekly, Holly. I don't want to speculate, but is it a weekly
Moon,
podcast?
I think it's weekly.
Yeah,
He's in the chat, so yeah, he'll pipe in.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be a really good one. And of course, Holly's really excited because now WWE has a vampire among the wrestlers with
Yes,
Danhausen.
Danhausen.
Danhausen. So yeah,
I am a
Holly's
Fanhausen.
vampiric heart is happy now. So
It should be
so
not a Fanhausen. I need to write Dan and tell him it needs to be a Fanghausen.
yeah,
See
that's
what I did
right.
there? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you see that? Yeah, Eva. You see that? Yeah. Vamp chat in the chat.
yeah, yeah. And Holly's also determined to get Logan Paul as a guest onto Moon's show there.
I
Yeah,
actually emailed
he,
Logan Paul
he did.
while the podcast was going on yesterday, Moon's podcast. I'm like, on it, done.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
finished. I haven't heard
yeah,
anything yet, but I
yeah,
did, CC
yeah.
Mr. Moon on there. So hey,
Oh,
the
that'd be
worst he could
great.
say is no or whatever,
Yeah,
but F off or whatever. But hey,
yeah.
you don't know till you ask, right?
Don't know.
I even
Yeah,
wrote
that's the
Prime
rule.
yesterday and about Imaginarium
So yeah,
sponsoring. So yeah, I
we're
mean,
trying to make Moon's dreams come true. Yeah, so he can
trying my best.
get Prime, for some Prime, and he can have Logan Paul on his show. Yeah, we see we care about our listeners. We really do. You can tell. So, but before we get, we want to make sure we stay on time. So let's recognize the folks that brought you tonight's show, and that'd be Per Bastet Publications. And as you heard a snippet of, the Sandy Lender, the genre blender herself. That's right. Of Sandy Says Read channel on YouTube. Please subscribe to it. Check it out. It is one of the better booktube channels that I have seen out there, and definitely deserves to be a big one. So yeah, help her spread the word on that. But here's a little bit from Sandy, and I promise this will not loop.
Did you know that fantasy author Sandy Lender offers more than epic fantasy novels for your escapist tendencies? Oh, my friends, Sandy's imagination can take you to all kinds of crazy or satirically vampiric or horrifying places. She even has soothing poetry to ease you through periods of grief. Visit AuthorSandyLender.com to choose the exact adventure you need today.
And thank you, Sandy. And you see, I got that set correctly. Did not loop that time. And so, yes, we are getting our full stride now. And so, also, we'd like to recognize, of course, Per Bastet Publications. Here's a little bit about them. Per Bastet Publications is a small press based in the Louisville metro area, specializing in speculative fiction and other outside the box books. With 40 titles in print and ebook formats and a handful of audiobooks, Per Bastet offers a little bit of everything. Check out Frenemies in Space, Marion Allen's new science fiction short story collection featuring return character Smartmouth Connie Phelan. Or try Michael Dabney's latest David Blaze mystery, A Deadly Game, a prequel set in 1984 Philly. You can find these titles and more at perbastetpublications.com, at Amazon, or you can find the press in person at Kentucky and Indiana book fairs and conventions. Per Bastet Publications, where timeless tales unfold. Shout out to T. Lee Harris, Marion Allen, and Sarah Marion, the literary triumvirate. That's such a great folks,
Yeah,
and
they are.
yeah, definitely check them out and support them. So yeah, we're right on time. So I think we'll roll right into our introduction for tonight and get this show underway as far as the guest side of things. So tonight we are bringing a guest on board for the very first time onto the Star Chamber Show. He is an author of both fiction and nonfiction, with 2 short story collections, The Streets of Greenfield and Snapshots in Time, And he also has a new nonfiction release, The Notorious Adams Boys. That's not enough to keep him busy. He is also the owner of Big Jack's Cafe in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. So it is my honor and pleasure to bring onto the show for the first time the one, the only, Eric Grate. And Eric, your microphone is on, and you should be there. Let's see. You should be on. You should be on.
He's still
Oh
muted.
no, I'm unmuting him.
Oh, there. Well, he was unmuted. Now he's muted again.
Okay, we'll hold on just for a second. Yeah, I tried to unmute him right there. I hit unmute. I did.
Live shows, Eric. Live shows.
Yeah. And I thought we were back to having it smooth and on track there. Hold on.
No, it did show he was muted, but like I said, there he is. It should be on now.
It should be on.
Stephen and Holly, hello.
There we are. There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, here I
Yes,
am. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. See, we delayed just to create a little more suspense.
That's what it was.
There you go.
Or the
Yeah,
system.
but I think my wife would like to have your mute button.
Yeah. Yeah, we well, on this end, yeah, some people have joked with me that if I could if I designed one for Holly, because Holly is very outgoing and loud, but we haven't perfected that technology.
You don't say.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
There's no button going to work on me.
But great to have you on the show. We've heard a lot about you. Of course, we've heard about your great establishment, and of course, thank you for supporting the writing community there and hosting author events at your cafe. But definitely, go ahead and introduce yourself in your own words to the audience, and we'll get underway, because this is going to be a fun discussion involving writing, music, and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, well, like you said, my name is Eric Grate. I live in Danville, Kentucky. I have a coffee house, Big Jack's Coffee House and Cafe in Lawrenceburg, as you mentioned. And you mentioned the two books that I've written. They're both short stories, or actually one is a short story cycle called The Streets of Greenfield, where all the stories kind of overlap, and there's characters that pop in and out of the different stories and that type of thing. And then my second book is called Snapshots in Time, and it's a collection of vignettes where you basically, I'm giving you just a little bit of a story, and I'm challenging you to come in and finish the story in your head, however you'd like to finish it. So everyone reads that book just a little bit differently. And back in February of last year, I kicked off my first nonfiction book, which is the Notorious Adams Boys, and I kind of got roped into that one. I wasn't looking for it; it just kind of happened. And there's a good story there, so when you're ready to hear that story, I'll share that with you.
Yes, we're definitely going to get into the stories, and in exchanging emails with you earlier, I think this is going to be a fun show in the fact that it draws in music tonight, and I, of course, am very passionate about music. Of course, I shared with you that my area that I'm very thoroughly versed in is rock, hard rock, and metal. But however, Holly, on the other hand, is versed in country, growing up where she did, and so that's going to tie into tonight, and because I know that you have some good stuff, involving George Jones, even, and then also a story that gets into my side of the thing with the Rolling Stones and Keith Richards. So there's a lot to talk about tonight. But let's get into the new book, and to tell us a little bit about the band that it's about.
Okay, well, the Adams Boys band, three brothers from Greenfield, Ohio, which is just a tiny little town of about 5,000 people, midway between Columbus and the Ohio River. It's the hometown of Johnny Paycheck, and it's also my hometown. So the Adams brothers, Don, Arnie, and Gary Adams, started playing music back in the late 50s, and by 1962, they were the heart and soul of George Jones' band, the Jones Boys. And they were with George up into 1966. Of course, they were fired or quit several times along the way, but they always came back. So for the better part of 4 years, they were the Jones Boys, and they played Madison Square Garden, they played Carnegie Hall, the Cow Palace, the Hollywood Bowl. They played all the big venues of the day with George, and they were on television. The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, Jimmy Dean, Hullabaloo. So they were the real deal, and they were great musicians, and they were recognized as such. Gary Adams was, by 1964, he was considered to be one of the top touring guitarists in all of country music. But not only were they great musicians, but they just absolutely could not behave themselves, and that's what makes them so interesting. And after they left George, they played with Little Jimmy Dickens, Merle Haggard, Ferlin Husky, and in
Wow.
1972 they joined Johnny Paycheck, and they were with Paycheck through 1976. And that was just a wild and crazy time too. That they grew up together. They grew up in the same neighborhood. Paycheck and the Adams brothers did, and so they knew each other since they were just kids, and the relationship they had was special, because they did know one another, and musically they were wonderful, and off the stage they were notorious, and that's where the name comes in. I'll share something else with you real quick. The first time that the Adams Boys were referred to as the Notorious Adams Boys was on the Ralph Emery show in 1965. It was Ralph Emery was interviewing Little Jimmy Dickens, and Dickens was going on a television tour to promote "May the Bird of Paradise Fly Up Your Nose," which was the number one song in the country at the time. So he put together a band that consisted of Buddy Emmons, who's the greatest steel guitar player of them all, and the Adams brothers. And when Ralph Emery questioned him about his band, Little Jimmy Dickens made reference to the Notorious Adams Boys and said that touring with them was like riding with the James Gang. So there you go.
Nice. Yeah, it's not just the rock and roll world as the rowdy ones. Yeah, the
No.
country
Oh
music
Lord,
was
no. Merle Haggard and all them. Oh God, Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash had been in prison. I mean, they were some rough and tumble dudes back then. The old Hank Williams Sr., even Patsy Cline, my girl. I love me some Patsy. She was meaner than a snake, and I love her for it because, well, it reminds me of me. And she had that little ornery streak. But yeah, they did. They raised hell back in the day, and it made them more relatable to people. Unlike a lot of the new country now, which I think is more pop than country, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not as relatable to the country bumpkins as like the old stuff. But I'm also biased, and it's what I grew up on. So I grew up on George and Waylon and all them. So yeah, Johnny Paycheck and
You're right, and you mentioned Patsy Cline, and she was doing her own thing, because at
yes, what?
that point, women were, they weren't doing the outlaw stuff, at the
Uh-uh.
time. It wasn't expected, and probably wouldn't have went over too well until Patsy came along, and
Yep,
she was way ahead of her time. And
she
speaking
was.
of Patsy, and I'll share something with you here, but there's only one person in the world that was on stage with Patsy Cline and with Marty Robbins during their last concerts that they ever performed. There's only one person
Well, it
ever.
wouldn't have been Loretta, would it? Because I know her and Loretta were close.
No, it wasn't Loretta. It
Okay,
was, I'll tell you, it was Gary Adams.
really?
It was guitar player Gary Adams. Yes. Patsy's last show in Kansas City, Kansas, was a package show. And George Jones was on the show, and his band, the Jones Boys, they backed up, played for all of the other acts on the show. So Patsy's last performance was with the Jones Boys, and that lead guitar was Gary Adams. And
I'll be.
yeah, 1963. Then in 1982, when Marty Robbins played his last show in Cincinnati, Gary Adams once again on stage with him playing guitar. So.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always get a chuckle when I hear Marty Robbins because the other set of grandparents for the kids that live with us, his name is Marty Robbins. So
Yes.
I always think of the country star, when I hear his name. But yeah, that what a cool connection there. Because yeah, I love how back in that era,
Yeah.
rock and country alike, how musicians always were playing with other musicians, and
Yeah.
and whether it was a studio or whether it was on stage, but they were often playing with each other or
Well,
sitting in on
they
sets. And
collaborated.
great, yeah,
They didn't see each other as competitors, like we always tell people with other authors or creatives. Don't look at each other as competitors. Look at each other as collaborators, because
yeah.
you never know. What you can network, and what could come out of it. You can create together. When one rises up, the other does. Just like creating your tribe and all that. So, yeah, that was neat because they did help each other a lot.
Now
You
your
know that.
parents. Oh,
Oh,
I
I'm
was just
sorry.
gonna say. I was gonna just say real quickly. Now, I just want to get a reference, Holly. Your parents, of course, were big country fans. Were they listening to this country
Yes,
during that '60s era?
yes.
So they would have.
They
Yeah,
they
yeah,
go they go
they would
all the
be
way
familiar.
back to, they were born in the
Yeah,
30s. So my parents they're the silent generation. I didn't have boomer parents. I had silent generation because my mom was like 40 when she had me, and dad was like 42. So they were much older and skipped a generation. So yeah, they are up there. Mom is now. But yeah, they went back to Buddy Holly, when like the rock and roll first started out of the blues and the rhythm and blues, when that all started, and coming off the Apollo days and all that. So they remember Buddy Holly, when Elvis started, when all those, and then yeah, they seen the rise of Hank Williams Sr., George Jones, Conway Twitty, Kitty Rogers, all them, Waylon, um, yeah, all them, Chris
yeah.
Christopherson,
So
which
yeah,
don't hear about no more, but Chris was great.
so they would have been familiar with the Adams Boys for sure. Then
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
mom would know.
Yeah,
I'll have to ask her, but I
yeah, gotcha.
guarantee you she'll want this book.
Yeah, she'll want this
Yeah,
book for
mom's
sure.
90, and she will want this book because she'll remember, all that time period. She remembers Patsy and Loretta Lynn and all those. So yeah.
Oh yeah,
Hey,
and Holly, you brought up a good point about how the musicians, the singers, and the bands, how they all did really get along pretty well back then.
Yeah, they
I'm
did.
sure there was exceptions, but
Right.
Don Adams, who was the front man of the Adams Boys, and George Jones, Johnny Paycheck's sideman, for several years, I asked him that question. Just how did you get along with the other musicians and the stars? Were there any that you just didn't like? And he said they all got along really well, and they supported one another, and they tried to help one another. But he had one exception. He said there was one person that he just could not stand to play with, and that was Ferlin Husky. Don said he spent eight
Huh.
months with Ferlin Husky in, I think, 1968, traveling all over the country. And he said that was the only person that he just absolutely could not hardly stand to be on a stage with. And the reason being was Ferlin Husky had an alter ego by the name of Simon Crumb.
Huh.
And yeah, this was just, he would just go into this act, and Don just found it real annoying, and
It's really odd.
it just really just grated his nerves, and they could not get along. And I was kind of that was really interesting to hear. Just out of all the people, there was just one that he couldn't get along with, and Kind of crazy.
Huh.
That's how it
That's
goes.
wow.
That's how it goes
Yeah, I
sometimes.
mean,
Yeah.
you know, you can't
Yeah.
get along with everybody. I guess that's how it
Right.
is, and everybody's got their own, you know, eccentrics. I can't talk tonight, but yeah, everybody's got their own little quirks about them. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it's not going to mix with everybody else. But that is a little odd, I guess.
Now,
Yeah, Eva kind of has an alter ego when she drinks tequila.
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
Yep,
now,
chat.
You ought to see her alter ego when she comes into the coffee house and, we don't have decaf and she has to drink a regular cappuccino or a wet cappuccino as
nice.
Bouncing off the
Eva.
walls.
Yeah.
Well, she
Yeah.
has a
Oh,
question. She wants to know, she wants you to tell us how you got roped into doing the book in the first place.
Okay.
mhm.
Yeah. This is an interesting story. Now, bear in mind that, I was a fiction writer and never intended on writing anything nonfiction. But February of 2025, my wife and I were on the way up to Lexington to buy pool supplies, okay, or hot tub supplies, actually.
Mhm.
And I'd got a message on Facebook from Don Adams, who we were Facebook friends. And back up a second, I used to date Don Adams' daughter in high school. So I knew Don,
Oh, wow.
from when I was a teenager. Yeah. But
Wow.
anyway, I got this message from Don. It said, "Hey, Eric, call me at this number." And
Okay.
I'm like, wow, this is Don Adams. And I started, you know, going through my mind, okay, what did I do to Don Adams? Okay, because we're talking the Adams boys. They were infamous face punchers. At one point in the '60s and '70s. So, but anyway, I showed the message to my wife, and I'm like, "What do you think this is all about?" And she says, "Well, I don't know. Call him and find out." So I did. I dialed the number, and this is how Don answered the phone. Okay, phone rings. He picks it up and says, "Eric, we need to write a book." And
Nice.
I'm like, "What? Hello, Don. How are you?" And he said, "We need to write a book." He skipped the pleasantries altogether. And I'm like, "Okay, Don. What do we need to write a book about?" Uh, and he said, "The Notorious Adams Boys, and I want to tell it all."
Ah.
And I said, "Okay." I said, "Now, bear in mind, Don was 84 years old." Okay,
Uh-huh.
and I said, "Okay, Don, you want to write a book about you and your brothers playing music?" I said, "Do you really want to tell it all?" And he just sat there for a few seconds, and then he went, "Well, almost all." so, so I explained to him, "Don, listen, I write fiction. Why do you want me to write this book?" And his answer was, "Because you're from Greenfield, you'll understand." And, that really doesn't mean a lot to someone who's not from Greenfield, Ohio. But if you are from Greenfield, Ohio, you kind of understand it's a small town, about 5,000 people, surrounded by a bunch of other towns that are a little bit bigger. But these other towns are county seats. Okay. I'm talking Hillsborough, Chillicothe, Washington Courthouse, Wilmington, Ohio.
Oh
They're
yeah.
all a little bit bigger and they're county seats. Greenfield isn't. These other towns had shopping centers, they had restaurants to go to. Greenfield had none of that. Everyone in Greenfield had, and probably still has, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And I think Don and his brothers and Johnny Paycheck, they carried that chip with them into their music careers. Okay. And it drove them. It drove them to be great musicians, and it also drove them to chronic misbehavior. And I guess Don thought that, I had dabbled in that over the years, which I guess I did. And that was enough for him. I was about 80% done with my third book, a follow up book to The Streets of Greenfield. And, how could I turn him down? I said, "Well, yeah, I'll do it." And I put that book on hold. And, we the very next week I had driven up to Greenfield and I started interviewing Don, and we spent the next 50 weeks together, um, off and on. I've got hours and hours of interviews with him, but sadly, Don passed on February 1st of this year. So we
Oh,
were exactly 2 weeks shy of having 1 year together. And when I kicked the book off, Don told me about his cancer, and it was in remission at the time, but it came back, and he told me about it, and I told Don it. I said, Don, this is a big project. This is going to take 2 years, but I kind of tried to kick it into overdrive, and I wanted to get it done for him while he was still alive, and I wasn't able to do that, unfortunately. I tried. So we're going to come in at about 14 or 15 months, and with an original game plan of 2 years. So I still beat the 2 years, but I'm just a little late, unfortunately, for Don to be able to see the book. But
so did he get to read any of it?
well, I used to go visit him, and Don, in the last couple months of his life, he was bedridden at that point, and
Mhm.
um, I used to go up and sit with him and interview him, but I would read him sections of the book, and
Oh, okay.
he really liked that, and he was happy with what I'd written, and Don wasn't the type, if he wasn't happy with it, he would have told me, but
Right.
it made me feel really good knowing that he was all about what I was writing, and
Yeah.
that was rewarding. But I am sad that I wasn't able to do it for him before he died. But hey, I think it would be more important to him to have a good book than a rushed book. So
Right. To have it done right.
right,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's neat though. He did get to hear some of it, and and he could find comfort in knowing that you were going to finish it and that it was in good hands.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was very comfortable with the way the book was going, and I kind of let Don set the tone, for the book. How do we want this book to go? Because I grew up in Greenfield, and I was familiar with a lot of the stories about the Adams brothers and about Johnny Paycheck, but I didn't really know how much Don wanted to lean on that versus just their musical careers, on stage. And I found out rather quickly that he wanted to mix it up. He didn't really want to hide anything. Let me take that back. There were a couple things he didn't want to talk about, but he wanted me to expose some of the blemishes, and some of the rough spots, and I did, and or yeah, I did. I have exposed them, I guess, in the book. And when it comes out here on April 30th, you'll see that. But it was, it was very rewarding. It was, with the exception of marrying my wife and the birth of my children and grandchildren. I would say probably the highlight of my life was the 50 weeks that I got to spend, with Don Adams. It was an honor.
Well, I'd say that after that, I mean, you have become, in a way, you become a music historian. I mean, you are,
Yeah.
Adams Boys historian at this point.
Right.
And because I mean, you're sharing all kinds of new stuff, their history. You preserved
Mhm.
it. You worked directly with Don to do this. I mean, this is an important release for music fans. Period. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of people, even like Holly's folks and all, that are going to just love to read a book like this, because
Right.
not just and new fans, not just nostalgia, but I think
Yeah,
fans of country music in general, just to know the genre and the history of it. And I think it's great that you are gonna that Don did share some of the, as you say, some of the rough edges, because
yeah.
that always makes for good storytelling.
Exactly, exactly. And Don and I, we talked about it one time, and early on, and when I was, just okay, Don, how much of this do we want to tell? And he and I together come up with an analogy, and it went something like this. We said, if there are two beautiful houses, one on the left side of the street and an equally beautiful house on the right side of the street, and one of them is on fire, which one are you going to look at? They're both beautiful, but one of them's on fire. Which one's going to catch your attention? You're going to look at the fire. It's kind of like going to a race and hoping for a wreck. And that's the way we wrote the book. We put them on stage. We told the story of Madison Square Garden and the Hollywood Bowl and appearing on the midnight special. We told all those stories, but then we also got down in the gutter, and that's really what makes the book I think extra interesting.
Now, as far as some of the stories, I mean, you gave me some info, and I hope that you can talk about a little bit. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a little bit of Johnny Paycheck info in here, and also Keith Richards.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask. Well, we'll ask first about the Johnny Paycheck stuff, because you'd mentioned that you wrote about the night Paycheck shot Larry Wise at the North High Lounge in Hillsborough.
Yeah.
Back in '85. So that's in the book, right?
Yeah, that's in the book. And when I first wrote that, Stephen, I had it just a couple paragraphs in another chapter because it didn't directly involve the Adams Boys. Okay, but the more I dug into it, the more I just told myself, hey, I've got an opportunity here and I'm not going to waste it. So I wrote a rather sizable chapter at the end of the book just about the Johnny Paycheck incident, like you said, on December 18th, 1985 in Hillsborough, Ohio at the North High Lounge. And it is a legend. We've all heard the story about, Paycheck got insulted by someone's comment over turtle soup. And it's hard to think that would, talking about turtle soup would cause one man to shoot another man. And I can tell you there's a lot more to it than that. There's much more to the story than just turtle.
Oh, I figured that.
Yeah,
that's gonna be fun. I don't know. Some people get really upset about their favorite thing, though.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to read
or
the
their
rest,
own cooking.
rest of
Yeah,
the story.
I might shoot somebody out if they're going to talk about my own cooking now, and it may.
Just so you all know, I do not let Holly access any of my firearms.
No, that's not safe.
I do keep them away
Keep
from
them
her.
babies hidden at supper time.
I'm a
That's right.
responsible firearm owner. They're out of Holly's knowledge of where they are. So.
Yeah, it's not safe. My anger is too fired.
That's great about the story. That more we're going to find out more about that, because I did hear about that back in the day.
Oh yeah,
even though I was a rock fan, I did hear about that incident. So yeah, I'm curious about it.
And it's funny that Paycheck is remembered as one of the greatest of the outlaws, and in hindsight he was. But if you went back to 1970, Paycheck didn't join the outlaw movement until late. I mean, it had actually peaked and was kind of almost on its way out by the time Paycheck got involved in 1976. And then in 78, I think it was, he did Take This Job and Shove It, which really just made him a household name. But at the time, if you ask someone to name, the top of the outlaw, the top stars of the outlaw movement, Johnny Paycheck would have honestly been an afterthought then. But you fast forward to 2026, and you can go online. Johnny Paycheck is like, I don't think there's anyone, with the exception of Willie and Waylon, who are more identified with the outlaw movement in 2026 than Johnny Paycheck. I mean, there's almost a cult following out there, for him. And
absolutely, yeah.
It's nuts. And I can tell you this, that I've had a couple people tell me that, why don't you just leave Paycheck alone? There's no sense to, dig all this up. And I'm like, well, no, there's
history, man.
It's history. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, Paycheck is a legend now. And he's had a great shelf life.
I think it has great relevance though because that's he grew up with the Adams
He
Boys.
did.
He has the same connection to Greenfield. I mean, yeah, it fits. It
It
fits the
does.
Yeah.
kind of project you're doing. It explains more of that whole thing you were talking about earlier about the kind of people that came from there and
Yeah.
kind of outlook they had. And so yeah, that definitely fits. But fun again to get new stuff on somebody so iconic.
Well, and it
That
never took
yeah.
away from their music because, Waylon
No.
Willie and the boys, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, they were huge. They were all huge back then, and they're
Yeah.
still revered. Their music is still listened to,
Exactly.
and new listeners are finding it all the time. So, yeah, it,
Mhm.
it never hurt their work for the history to come out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you know, if you want to know how great a musical era was, or a particular singer or a particular song, all you got to do is just look. Are they still playing it today?
Yeah,
mhm.
And
right on.
if, and if they are, well, there you've answered your question. It's
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
look at
it's
Cash.
timeless.
Oh my God, they play Cash on rock
Mm.
stations, even.
Yeah,
You know.
no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah,
he was in prison, so,
well,
Yeah,
I mean, that
well,
like the
even
rest of them.
yeah,
even he even collaborated with Glenn Danzig, who's one of my favorite rock
Yeah,
performers and hard rock performers, and on
yeah.
songs and rock artists and things like that. Did a lot of some crossover stuff, and
uh-huh.
yeah, either as or in songwriting areas or it's other projects. So yeah, it's neat, and yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely don't affect their, you know, sales or their
No,
music.
and I think a lot of people today are talking about what Holly said earlier, and I found this to be true because I found a lot of new country to have some trappings of like 80s kind of
Mm,
rock. It's almost like a pop rock kind of
yeah.
thing came into pop rock elements came into country, and it changed a lot. And I think a lot of people are hungry for that older country. I mean, the older country connects to me more the new countries. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more interested in what you're talking about.
Yeah,
These guys appeal more to me. Yeah.
there's a underground, movement for this classic country.
Mhm.
You go down, to Texas. Dale Watson is probably bigger now than he ever was. Um, it's there's a movement out there, and unfortunately, it's hard to find it. Being played anywhere. I mean, of course, you could stream it, but it's kind of buried unless you go looking for it. And unfortunately, but when you do, it's out there. You know,
Mhm.
and that's refreshing to know that it's not dead.
Yeah, it's one like in the rock world, the artist Youngblood really hit with younger audiences, and all of a sudden now they're discovering Ozzy Osbourne and
Yeah,
and Aerosmith and
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Yeah.
All it's gonna take is somebody like that
Mhm.
to set fire in that area, and then everybody's gonna, I think, flock back and really revisit and rediscover, a
Well, it's
lot of
just
those
like
artists.
Jelly
Yeah.
Roll. Jelly, who I love
Mhm.
dearly, he brought people over from rock,
hmm,
from listening to rap because
yeah,
he was in those spheres, and a whole bunch of people over to the country that maybe would have never been exposed to it.
yeah,
Machine Gun Kelly even did a song with him. Eminem did a
yeah.
collab with him. So yeah, I mean, you find that one crossover there, and bam,
Yeah,
yeah.
then I just start discovering it. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
Mhm.
There's room in classic country music. There's room for everyone.
Oh
If,
yeah.
Oh,
you
sure.
want to
Oh, sure.
come in and get on board. And
Mhm.
it's great, and it's all inclusive music. Really, I think people that don't understand it just don't th- they don't realize just how relatable the music is to a cross section of people in this country.
Mhm.
Especially
It's
the Midwest.
yeah,
It's not just people out in rural areas. It's for everybody, and
it is.
especially the
Yeah.
Midwest.
Mhm.
And the Midwest is the majority of America, except for the coast. So
Mhm.
Right.
covers a
Yeah.
big
Well,
area. So,
I think the appeal is gonna be authenticity because I think today, I think a lot of, we're in, you hear the word artificial, a lot of artificial intelligence, the artificial world of, social media presentation and all, and everything's, tech, everything is so technological, and I think that the thing is the old country, it's about real life, and there's soul to it, and it talks about real things, and it's got an authenticity to it that I think resonates, and I think that's going to be a big pull too. Is that in a world that's very artificial, I think the truth in it is going to be what I think helps shine through as people discover, and I think they're going to respond to books like yours with stories like this. I mean, I think it's going to be
definitely.
great. Mhm.
And before we leave off of this book topic, I do have a couple more questions. Eva in the chat, BAMP chat with Dan
Oh,
and
oh,
Eva.
we're not done.
We're not done.
Oh
She
no.
wanted to know if you have ever reached out to the Nashville Hall of Fame about your book.
You
And and
okay?
what is the most surprising thing from Don about the industry that you have learned from his involvement in it?
Oh wow, wow. Okay, well, let's answer the first question
Okay.
first, and the answer is no. I have not, and I don't have an excuse as to why I haven't. It's crossed my mind, and it's been on my. I've reached out to a lot of people and a lot of organizations, but the Country Music Hall of Fame isn't one of them, and I don't know why I haven't. I just haven't, but I will. I will.
And you know the Opry, even maybe like in the Opry gift shop,
Yeah,
I would look about getting your book in there.
yeah. You're exactly
Mhm.
right. You're exactly right. I
Oh yeah.
do need to do that, and but now, what was the second question though?
She wanted to know what was the most surprising thing you learned from Dawn about the industry and their whole involvement in it.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
gosh,
that's a good one.
that's a tough one, man. I don't know. I don't. This probably isn't a heavy hitter here, but this surprised me, and it draws a big distinction, between country music then and country music now. Don pointed out to me that back in the '60s there were no roadies. They were the bands were they were driving the bus. They were
Oh yeah. Oh
they
yeah.
were, yeah, they were unpacking the
All the
gear.
hats.
They were setting it up. They were tearing it down.
Yup.
Yeah,
And bands half the time till they got real big and then could actually
yeah,
get a bus.
yeah. They were just they were driving around in Cadillac, Eldorados and stuff. All
Mhm.
six of them in there. And but I think that kind of surprised me to learn just how basic it was. Um, doing all the work. And, I mentioned that these guys played Madison Square Garden, the Cow Palace, the Hollywood Bowl, but,
Mhm.
they also played, in front of 250 people in honky tonks and dance halls, all
Mhm.
over the country. And I dare say you wouldn't get a star of George Jones caliber today to play in a honky tonk in front of 200 people.
Uh-uh.
I don't think you could swing that today.
No, no.
Yeah,
I don't either. I mean, we have like cuz we live in Lexington, yeah, we'd have a few come to like Manchester Music Hall and so
mhm.
older bands,
Yeah,
that will come, but it still holds like what, a couple thousand people or
yeah.
something.
A little over a
So yeah,
thousand. About a thousand.
yeah.
About a thousand.
They're not
Yeah.
going to come to a honky tonk,
No,
where there's like 100, 200 people anymore. It isn't well, really, it's not financially a good idea, right? You're
no,
going to lose money
Mhm.
instead of
no,
gain money with the
that's
gas
exactly right.
prices and all this stuff. I mean, you think about it, you're actually going to lose money by the time you pay people and all that. I mean, it's not just coming and singing. You got a band, you got lights, you got a lot going on.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. And these guys, they you would think they lived a glamorous life, and that's what I went into it thinking. Just man, that must have been really cool. Just driving all around the country and appearing in all these places, and people just fawning over you, and and all that. But after spending this time with Don, it wasn't a glamorous life, with the exception of that 1 hour you might be up on the stage. I guess you could say it was, but everything leading up to it and everything after that show wasn't very glamorous. And that I think that whole thing surprised me as much as anything. These guys were not only sharing hotel rooms, but sometimes they were sharing beds. You know,
Yes.
that was just a fact. And and Don said we didn't think anything of it. It was just something we had to do, so we did it. And that didn't even change in the '70s with
Nope.
Paycheck. It was still
Yeah.
the same way.
Oh yeah, I love. Yeah, on the rock side, I loved reading the early stories of Kiss and bands like Rush and Aerosmith and all, because it was rough. They go around in bands and like you said, sharing hotel rooms and carrying their own gear, and yeah, it was not glamour unless you hit the absolute heights. Yeah, it was not glamorous. Yeah, unless you're on top of
Michelle
it all.
T. Michelle says in the comments, she's like, imagine driving across the country with 5 grown men
Uh,
in one car. And I'm like, oh God, the smell alone.
you know what? I wrote about that. I wrote about that, and
Did you?
yeah, I asked Don. I said, Don, that exact question. I said, Don, what was it like? 5, 6 guys riding along in this car.
Oh,
I said,
God.
what was that? He said, well, he said, for one, he said, we all smoked cigarettes. Okay. He said, for two, he said, what is it about men that want other men to smell their farts?
Oh, God, this is
He
Steven's
said, he
favorite
said,
topic.
he said, could you imagine 5 or 6 men, he said, riding along and they're farting and belching all the time just so the other guys could smell it?
And decide, oh, I know what you ate this
Yeah.
morning. I know what you had last night. Those beer and popcorn farts. And
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
whole discussions. I could just
Oh,
imagine.
oh yeah.
I know what you ate at Waffle House. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a guy, I knew exactly what he was talking about. I was kind of ashamed of
Right.
myself, you know. But yeah, he said it was, he said it's exactly what you would think it might be, 5 or 6
Yeah,
guys.
I bet you it was. I bet it was. Well, at least it provided some lighthearted moments to break up the monotony of long road trips, I guess.
No kidding. Well, you'd have to, or you'd go freaking nuts, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God. I mean, it had to be brutal. And
Oh,
I
it
know
was.
just from me and Steven, just going. Gosh, just going like book events that are a couple hours away or whatever, just driving up and have to be there all day and then driving back. I mean, you're not doing a lot of strenuous work for 10 hours, but it's exhausting
Yeah.
because you mentally got to be on, right? And it is. It's just exhausting. So I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, and you left out this. Women don't even fart. So
Well, some of us
Oh,
do. I'll
oh,
tell
hey,
you that
well,
right now.
well, I used to think that, Eric. I used to think that.
I did too.
Until he met me.
These Indiana girls have some talent. Let me
No,
tell
I
you.
don't know. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Michelle, who asked that question, that's my wife.
That's what she said, and I said we will have to come visit soon.
Yeah,
And
I
poor
really,
Steve,
I
poor
hope
Steve
you
got his
will.
eyes open, and he calls me his corn-fed Dixie chick because
Yeah.
I come from the land of corn, and we're feral up in Indiana. We are. We
Yeah.
don't have the class like these Kentuckians, and I always say that when I'm driving. I'm like, listen. I will get out of this car and beat your ass, driver, because I might have a Kentucky plate, but I'm a Hoosier. I'm not nice.
That's
Oh gosh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, she would fit in right in with all these guys back in that time. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But yeah, in addition to the cool stories that you're going to hear in this book, and this is one that I'm interested in because I've been, a admirer and fan of the Rolling Stones, for
Mm,
decades now, and
yeah.
of course, it's the immortal one, Keith Richards, the one that yeah, obviously is would survive a nuclear blast, as
Yeah.
everyone jokes. But yeah, Gary had an altercation evidently with him, in San
Yeah.
Antonio back in '64, right when the Stones were starting to hit big stride back then as far as the British invasion. So that's got to be cool. I mean, as far
Oh,
as yeah,
yeah. 1964, the Stones' first American tour,
hmm
and yeah, I got to tread lightly here because I can't tell the whole story.
no problem. Yeah, whatever you
but
can share.
but yeah, Keith Richards was being Keith Richards, okay, and
He's a vampire.
Gary Adams was being Gary Adams, and yeah, they had an altercation, and,
Oh.
and it didn't end well for Keith.
No.
Yeah,
Oh, I can't wait to read this. Yeah, and that's interesting, Mick, because if you look at the Rolling Stones in the late '60s, country music did have an influence on the Stones
it
in the
did.
late '60s. It came into so
Oh yeah,
whatever
without a
they're
doubt.
yeah, so you got to wonder, as
Hmm.
they were coming into America from Britain,
Oh
what
yeah,
all this period is when they're kind of absorbing some new influences and what kind of effect did it have and
Well,
all
yeah,
the
because that's what
interactions. Yeah,
Americans were listening to, right?
yeah.
You
Mhm,
had you had R&B, and we had the blues, and then
mhm.
the Motown movement, and then you had country,
yeah,
and that's
Yeah,
what the majority of Americans were listening to.
yeah.
but I
I've
was just
always
thinking
wondered.
yeah,
You brought it up, Stephen. That song "Dead Flowers."
mhm.
Uh, the Stones. I mean that
Yeah,
sounds like a country song to me, and
yes, they do. There's several tracks back
yeah,
in that late '60s period
so that's a great
that have country
observation.
influences, and, yeah, there's no question that it had to be the influence had to be taking place at that time
Yeah,
in the mid '60s era. So,
yeah,
yeah, so Keith
I think
obviously,
I love
I
this.
guess Gary left an impression on Keith.
he did, and it's funny that whole thing down in San Antonio.
Yeah,
It was a 10-day event. It was a fair. They called it the Teen Fair of Texas, and the Stones were there for 3 days, and George Jones and the Jones Boys were there for the whole 10 days. And the Stones were not that well received, really. Um, Bobby V, of all people, he was the big attraction for the young people there.
Right.
The Stones they were kind of a freak show there in Texas.
Yeah,
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 they
I
yeah.
weren't
know.
that
When
well
when they're
received.
kind, yeah,
Right.
Yeah, not
when
yet.
But
their
when they
type
came
of
Yeah.
back, I
music.
think they came back in what, like 67 or 68 or something like
Uh-huh.
that. They were
Mhm.
much bigger then.
Yeah, yeah. They had to warm up to the idea.
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that
Little
story.
different culture.
And this will obviously have some George Jones stories, I'm sure, and
Oh,
you don't have to give away a lot on that, but I'm sure that, yeah, for the George Jones fans that are listening, this is gonna have a lot of meat to it in the book.
Poor old George.
I'm
No
sure.
show, George. He liked to drink a little too much.
Man, oh man.
Mm.
I'll tell you one story. I did a TikTok video on this the other day, so I don't mind
Oh,
sharing it if
hell
you
yeah.
want to hear it.
Go for it.
Go
Okay.
for it. Yeah.
Um, Buffalo, New York, 1964. A package show with George Jones and the Jones Boys, Little Jimmy Dickens, Minnie Pearl, and Grandpa Jones. There's a lineup
No.
for you. Yeah, they did a package show in Buffalo, and after the show, they all went back to the hotel, and everyone gathered in Little Jimmy Dickens' room for whatever reason. And that they were doing their thing. They were getting their buzz on, and all that. And at some point, uh, George Jones and Little Jimmy Dickens got in an argument, right?
Oh.
Yeah, and the possum went 5'7". Okay, and he towered over Jimmy Dickens at 4'10". Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, yeah. He
Good
towered over little
grief.
Jimmy. Yeah. So they're getting ready to square off, and Don's describing this story to me, and it's like you go back to the old boxing, John L. Sullivan and those guys.
Right.
How they would
Yeah.
that dance they would do, and they'd be rolling their fists and stuff. You
Yeah.
know, Don said that's what they were doing, but the possum was almost a foot taller, so Jimmy jumped up on the bed, right? So he could kind of equal George's height, and Jimmy's double his fist up, and he says something to the effect of, he says, "I'll knock your ass out." And George looked at him and turned and looked at the nightstand, and there was a lamp on it. And George decided, well, I'll just pick that lamp up and bust little Jimmy Dickens over the head with it. So he did. And, he smashed little Jimmy Dickens and knocked him onto the floor out like a light. And I asked Don, I said, what'd y'all do then? He said, we just went back to our rooms. And I said, well, what about the next morning? What happened? He said, nothing. He said they forgot all about it. He said, I don't even know if Jimmy remembered what happened. But he said, no one ever mentioned it. And I'm like, what about that knot on little Jimmy's head? I mean, that, he laid that lamp right across his head. But, that was the lifestyle they were living.
Yeah.
He literally got the Dickens knocked out of him.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, I did one of your puns, Stephen. Ha
yeah. If I had drums and a cymbal, I would have just hit it.
Yes, that's usually
played,
a Stephen statement.
Yeah, you got to it first. That's awesome, Holly. Well played. Well played. But yeah, this is going to be a delight when it comes out. Now, are you with a book like this, and it sounds like it's going to be just a joy, not for music historians, people that are fans of the genre, for people that want to hear these kind of stories. Does this light your fire for doing more books of this kind? Because this is going to be like a calling card. I mean, if you are interested, if there are other artists that you are interested in, you could show them this and what you did. Yeah.
Yeah, there's yes and no. Yes and no. I would be lying if I didn't say that it's very appealing to me, to be able to to write about these characters like the Adams brothers. But I don't know. Right now, I'm having a hard time thinking outside of that genre, if that makes sense. I've just been so embedded in this classic country music but so many of those guys are gone.
Yeah.
There's just not many of them left. And
right.
So I don't really know how to answer that. I'm interested in it, but I don't know if that's really in my future or not. I guess, when this book comes out, I've had time to digest everything. I may dive right back into another one if I have the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad, because I'm glad you got this done, because it's a valuable piece valuable piece of history. So yeah, it's got so much. It spans such a long time too.
I'd tell you a good one would be like Hank Williams Jr., because he could enlighten you on a lot of what went on with his father and with him, because Hank Jr. is getting up there now.
Well, let me say this, Hank Jr., if you're listening, okay, I will 100% write your book if you want to write it.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, you know what I do? You know what I do, Eric? I just write these people. Stephen, no, I write anybody. I wrote Logan Paul yesterday from Wrestling for Moon. I write everybody. You wouldn't believe people I've talked to.
Yeah, she does.
And they either tell you, I am. I'm like, they'll either tell me to F off or they'll respond.
Well, they've never told you to F off.
They haven't. They've been very kind. I've had no rude. I've got a lot of, not at this time or, whatever. But they've been very pleasant. Some say yay, some say nay. It just depends.
I took a little bit of a gamble like that, and I reached out to Brent Mason. Okay. I'm sure, you're both familiar with Brent Mason. I mean, he's probably the top guitarist in Nashville, right now, recording guitarist, and has been for years. Well, he knew Gary Adams. They kind of hung out a little bit back in the 80s when Brent had just hit town and was just kind of getting going. He crossed paths with Gary Adams, and they hung out and, played a little bit together. And Brent and I, we corresponded a little bit through email, I never actually got to talk to him, but we went back and forth through email a few times, and he gave me some pretty good insight to his time with Gary Adams in Nashville in the early '80s. If I can, I know I don't. I suspect we're getting short on time, but
Go ahead.
I'm not bashful, so I could talk all night if you want to talk. But it's I wanted to mention this, and I don't know if how many people's aware of this, but Mike Judge, Tales from the Tour Bus.
Mm-hmm.
That series back in, was it 2017 or whatever? The Adams Boys were prominently featured on the first 2 episodes in season 1 of that.
Oh wow!
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. And if you've not seen that, or if it's been a while since you've seen it, I would suggest going back and watching those first 2 episodes. The first episode is Johnny Paycheck, and the second episode is George Jones. And the Adams brothers are prominently featured in that.
We'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah,
we'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah. So this book, and Mike Judge, if Mike Judge is listening, or Holly, if you want to reach out to him for me.
Well, let me write it down because I'll do it.
This would be a natural extension of that series. It's the same kind of stuff, but amplified.
Nice.
Mike Judge.
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote it down. Made a note.
There you go. Time to call me.
Moon about verify. I sure do.
Someone just pointed out.
I'll get your email from Steve, and I will hunt him down. And I'm good at this because I'm a convention manager. I've done this for many years now, and I hunt them down. I'm like a bloodhound.
Go get him.
She does.
Steven knows. He's like, just let her go because she's gonna do it.
Hey, someone in the thread here commented that it is hard to find those episodes, but they are out there, and they're exactly right. You do
YouTube,
have to,
maybe? What about YouTube?
No, they're not actually there. Listen,
no, really?
Yeah, I actually found a link to them, and someone just said you can find them on Daily Motion. I think they're right about that. But I'll tell you what, when we go off the air here, I'll email that link to you.
Okay.
And
cool.
you can share it with your listeners or whatever, and they can find them all there. But I think this person is correct. I think it is on Daily Motion, but I'll have to double check.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into these for sure because this is fascinating. This is so cool, and
it is.
We barely scratched the surface, man. This is just.
Well, we're going to have to get your butt to Imaginarium, and that way we can give you a whole hour or more, and you could talk about it.
You got a lot of musicians to get me there.
Yes,
we got loads.
Yeah, we're going to have to link you up and try to get you out, and because this is fascinating, and our bunch would eat it up, and we do have some authors there that we know. I've even got some books laying around here somewhere, especially Jen Zielinski. She has done like Duran Duran. God, I don't even know. She's done so many.
Genesis,
biopics, Genesis, biopics, so she would eat it up. I know that.
I'd love to do it. I guess I was resistant for a while because Eva, she was always, Eric, you got to come here. You got to come here and meet this person. You got to do that. And I said, listen, Eva, I said, writers. I said, writers are about the biggest bunch of geeks I've ever met in my life. I don't want to hang out with them people. And then all of a sudden I realized that I'm one of them.
Yes. We're all geeks. We are all super geeks. And under Imaginarium's hood, it's all inclusive. So, we leave all the religion and the bull crap and the politics at the door, and everybody just gets along. And we're all a bunch of geeks on certain subjects.
Yeah.
Well, I was about to say that in Imaginarium, everybody transforms from being the writer introvert to being extroverts for those 3 days.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's like a different, everybody's themselves for 3 days, and they don't feel like, they have to.
No, because we're all alike.
Well,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll tell you,
yeah.
I'm sold on it then. So yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Well, we're
I
gonna
want to
come
get
see
in there and
you.
do that then.
Well, we're gonna
Yeah,
come see you.
we want to come see you soon. We want to come see you before Imaginarium
Well, I hope.
because
Yeah,
we've got to get out there and
yeah.
either do a reading or just come see you and just hang out,
Well, that's what
just
I wanna
whatever.
give you a chance I wanna give you a chance to promote your place
Yes.
because you, are a friend to the writer community and because Eva speaks highly of the events that she's
Yeah.
done over there, and so, I mean, I'd love for you to be able to, tell our especially our listeners in this region even that are in this region about your cafe and coffee shop. I'd love to hear a
Okay.
little bit about that before we
Yeah, it's
close.
a Big Jack's Cafe and Coffee House in Lawrenceburg, and we do writers' nights there, and they're not something we regularly schedule. It's just if it comes to mind, I'll call Eva up and say, hey, let's put one of these together. And they've always been a big success. We do it after hours in the evenings. We turn the lights down and put candles on the table, and we drink coffee out of little cups, and we have a good time. And Eva and Dan have both been there. Eva's been there multiple times.
Mhm.
We have writers come in from all over Kentucky and all over the region.
Yeah,
Real, and it's a great time. And we do it for 2 or 3 hours, and we don't really put a time limit on it, and we just get up and read. And the folks, it's always a full. We seat about 45 people. It's not huge, but the seats are always full, and you can come in and talk to folks and sell your books, and it's a good time. And I want to reschedule one. In fact, I have one on my schedule right now, but the date is to be determined. So I've got to determine that date and do it.
gotcha. Yeah, because I've heard about these events and that they really have gone well and
Yeah,
I was curious about your place, and I know I was supposed to I was trying to make, time to come to one. Of course, our lives are so tumultuous. I mean,
yeah,
like Holly can vouch for me, our home front life is very unpredictable, so, yeah, I think that was one of the problems that came up was we had
Well,
some home front stuff.
and especially right now, I have a very sick grandbaby that's going to have some serious heart surgery
oh
very
wow,
soon. We don't know, next few weeks. So I'm in and out. I'm in between here and Indiana, so and it's
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
3 hour drive.
yeah,
But yeah, we definitely want to get down there. So maybe we should, be looking at it sometime early May. We should actually get with
yeah,
you at
come
some
down,
point
just
and get down
come
there.
down and say
Yeah,
hi.
before I
Yeah,
have to go to, because I have to take care of my other three little granddaughters while my grandson
yeah.
has his surgery. So yeah.
mhm.
Okay, yeah.
And
Well,
then, we got the convention coming up, and then I'm a freelance editor, and yeah, we got a publishing company, and yeah, the list goes on, right?
No, he
We
understands, I'm
all
sure.
have the many things.
Running yeah, running a
hey,
cafe and coffee shop, he knows busy,
That's
yeah.
what I said. You know exactly what I'm
oh
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. I'll tell you. And right now, the beginning of May is kind of open for me. On May 9th, I'm taking off on a pretty extensive book signing tour,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be kind of wrapped up, probably through August, at least on the weekends.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, man, I'd love for you guys to come over, and heck, just come over and drink coffee, if nothing
Yeah,
Yeah.
else.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us anything about the tour, before we wrap up, because that's one thing
Okay.
we ask. What other events you have coming up?
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's see. On May 9th will be my first book signing, and that's up in Greenfield.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll be in Greenfield on May 9th. On May 16th, I'll be in Chillicothe, Ohio.
Mhm.
May 30th, Williamsburg, Virginia. Looking down the
Nice,
list here, on June 19th, I'll do my first Kentucky event in Vanceburg,
nice.
the 19th. And if folks go to they can go to my website, ericgrate.com, or they can go to my Facebook page. I'm Eric Grate author all over social media. I'll have my schedules posted there, both my book signings and my media events that I'm doing. They're all there, so people can come and visit. And I'd love to meet everyone. And you know I I'd love to talk to people about it and answer questions. And I'm pretty accessible. So take a look at my schedule and come out and see me. I'd love to meet you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's gonna be very exciting. And yeah, before when
Good
you
deal.
do election date, yeah, definitely let us know too. And Holly, I'm gonna talk to you later because I have some definite ideas for him for Lexington as far as
Okay.
some people that I think would be great for to help support it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful time. And like she said, yeah, definitely get the copy of your book down to Nashville because I got a hunch that they're gonna respond to this one
Yeah.
very warmly.
Yeah.
Very warmly.
I need to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is history, and it fills a gap. It fills, anytime something, and especially like you said, with them with them aging,
Yeah.
and all these great iconic individuals and who are major parts of a genre's history. When things like this come out, it's valuable. It's recording the history. So yeah, definitely wishing you really well on that. And yeah, you have a great website too. And I want to bring attention to that. I want to give you a chance to give your author site and then any social media you want to share.
Yeah, in the coffee shop.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. My author site is ericgrate.com, EricGrate.com. And social media, like I said, I'm Eric Grate author all over social media. Facebook, I've got a very active Facebook page, TikTok, Instagram, even Twitter, which I absolutely hate, but I'm on there.
Me
So
too.
you can find me, across the board, and my day job is at the coffee shop, and I
Mhm.
I love to talk to folks. So if you're in Lawrenceburg, Big Jack's Cafe and Coffee House, stop in and see me. If I could, real quick, I want to mention something else that's going on in Greenfield on
Yes.
June 6th and 7th. June 6th and 7th. Greenfield has a music festival downtown that
Oh,
they've been doing for a few years, and it's coming. I don't really know what the lineup is this year yet, but it has been every year. It's getting better and better. And if you have an opportunity, if you're up in Ohio, Southern Ohio, Columbus, or whatever, and you have a chance to get down to Greenfield on June 6th and 7th, come to the music festival. I'll be there both days doing talks about the Adams brothers and, reading from my book and, taking question and answers or doing a
Mhm.
Q&A session with folks. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So come see me if you're around Greenfield on June 6th or 7th.
Awesome. Awesome. And so is there before we wrap up the show tonight, we always ask, is there anything that we may not have touched on, of course, with a wonderful new release or anything like that you
that
want
you
to
wanted to
make
tell or
sure you
talk
get
about?
out?
Uh, I think we kind of touched on it pretty good. I would suggest to folks though, if you're not really familiar with the Adams Boys specifically, not George Jones or Johnny Paycheck, but the Adams Boys specifically, go to YouTube and start looking for these videos of the Adams Boys. Um, there's a lot of video out there of them on the Jimmy Dean Show, on Hullabaloo. They were on the Midnight Special with Paycheck in 1973. There's
Mhm.
a lot of video out there for them, and you really get a feel for just how good these guys were. It's fascinating. It's like getting into a time capsule. And one other thing, I wish I would have mentioned this
Go ahead.
earlier, but there was a live album recorded in Houston, Texas on February 11th, 1965. It was George Jones live at Dancetown, USA. Okay.
Mhm.
It was recorded in 65, but they didn't release it until 85. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
You can get this CD. There was a CD released in 1988. Okay. It is the single best example of what going into a Texas dance hall in the 1960s was all about. It's George Jones live on stage. He's talking to the fans. He's going back and forth with them. He's drinking during the intermissions. It's a fabulous recording. But that's George Jones live at Dancetown, USA. You can go on Amazon and buy it, or you can go on YouTube and you can listen to it as well. I suggest everyone do that. It's fascinating.
Well, Holly, I guess I'm gonna have to order a CD.
Oh no, more CDs and albums like you don't have enough.
You won't regret this one.
No, no,
He has thousands. I'm not kidding.
I'm a vinyl CD. That's my addiction, but there's vinyl and CDs. So yeah,
And books.
Hey, I've been good though recently. I've not been so bad. But yeah, this one I will have to put in my cart. Yeah,
Mine's cheaper. Mine is mainly, well, beside the crystals and stuff, but yeah, anything witchy. Mine is I would have to say bookmarks. I love bookmarks.
Okay.
Yeah,
but they're easier to take care of.
Yeah, mine is pocket knives. Michelle has she's convinced me I don't need any more pocket knives, though.
Nice.
Yeah, but do you listen? No, because Steve don't listen either.
Michelle's in the other room listening, so my answer is yes, I listen.
Yeah.
Well, Steven's in the other room, so yeah, he's going to say that, but no, he's not going to listen.
No, there have been less packages coming, so I've been better. So.
Well, you're having them sent to the mail center, though, right? Is that
yeah?
Yeah,
yeah. but this has been a blast, and I've been looking forward to the show, and definitely, this with my love of music. I mean, I'm going to dive into this book immediately when it comes out, and I'll be getting it for sure. And so I'm looking forward to everything with this. And any way we can help you, let us know. And I'll turn it over to Holly to close out with you. But thanks for your time tonight, Eric.
Great show. I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been a blast. It really has. I thank you very much.
Well, you've been a great guest, and we'll get together soon. And yeah, we definitely don't be a stranger to the show, because we'll definitely have to get you back on, and hopefully we can get you rounded out for Imaginarium.
There you go. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.
Eva will be all over it.
Sounds great. She's excited.
All right.
That sounds great. Well, thank you. Have a great night, hon.
Hey, you have a great night too, and thanks again.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
All right, listener world. Join us next Wednesday, same place, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. Another great guest, another great chat for the rest of the week. Be creative. Good night, all.